Everyone, and welcome to EverQuest. I'm your host, Dandinmindfire of the Guild Pain and Glory, coming at you from the Vox server here. And today, I thought I'd make an instructional video on how to get ready to raid and how to make sure that you're raid ready. So, first things first, you want to make sure that you have all your spell reagents that you're going to need while you're in a raiding environment. And let me fix my camera here. All right. So first thing, you want to go to the Plane of Knowledge in between the Guild Hall and the Bazaar portals here on either side. There's a little trader building here, and you'll run into Darius Gandrill. And Darius Gandrill sells all of the spell reagents that anyone would ever possibly need. So for enchanters, we need peridots, we need tiny daggers, and we need bat wings. So go ahead and buy yourself some of those, as you're going to need them for spell reagents that you'll be casting on raids. Mainly get peridots, as you'll be using quite a few of these if you go for the rune stance and if you start ruining other players, but I'll get into that in a little bit here. So this guide, I guess, is going to be split into three distinct parts. Spells, AAs, and roles that we're going to be filling. So first things, I'm going to start with the roles that we'll be filling on raids, and hopefully I'll be able to get another video up tonight of me fulfilling these roles on raids. So, enchanters, your first primary role that you're going to be filling on raids is crowd control. So you're going to be making sure that everything around you is mezzed, stunned, rooted, whatever it is that you can possibly do to eliminate some of the damage coming out of the ads. That's going to be your primary concern. The secondary role that you're going to be filling on raids is going to be debuffing. So you're going to be dropping their magic resist, slowing them, dropping their armor class and strike radius, and of course their chance to hit with a couple of special AA abilities that I'll go over. The next role that we're going to be filling is going to be going through and doing assisted DPS. As you'll find in as an enchanter, you'll be put with the casters a lot, so you'll be with wizards and mages, druids, necros, and if you're lucky, you might actually get a bard in there as well. But it all depends on your raid makeup and how your raid leader decides to fit the role. On the odd time, you may get stuck with the tank group, and I'll go over that in a separate video on how to kind of go melee DPS tank support, as this isn't very common for us, so this isn't something that I'm going to talk about in this video, but it can happen. So after you're done your assisted DPS role, you have two options. You can either choose to DPS or reduce DPS. And what I mean by that is you can choose to apply damage by casting nukes and damage over time spells and stuff like that to help your raid kill the enemy. Or you can go the polar opposite of the route and you can target tanks and throw runes around and reduce damage incoming to your raid and your group by throwing single target runes and group runes and stuff like that. So I'll go over that. But first thing, we'll go over the primary role of crowd control. So I'll kind of go over what I use for crowd control. A couple chanters use different things, but for main crowd control usage, for the single target mez, I use chaotic confounding. And this is because I'm a DPS chanter. And what I mean by that is whenever you single target mez a enemy with this spell here, it procs 2 twin cast charges in your buff bar. So you mez an NPC with this, and the next 2 damage spells you cast will be twin cast. So you mez a mob like this guy over here, next 2 damage spells that you cast on the raid boss will be twin cast, so you can do a little bit more damage for the mana that you're using. The next mez is called Perilous Disorientation. Now this mez, you cannot target yourself, so make sure your target window is clear or on somebody else or whatever. As long as you're not targeting a player, you're good to use this. This will mez on a 360-degree area around you for up to 6 seconds. Now, this spell also has a drawback in which it has a chance to drain some of your mana whenever you cast it. So if you're mezzing a large amount of NPCs with this spell, it's going to take some mana. But this spell is better than the other AE version because it lasts longer. This spell only lasts 12 seconds, so you need to make sure that you're following that up with another mez, and I'm going to go over that mez in a second. The next mez that I use is Mesmerizing Stare. Mesmerizing Stare puts a little green target on your cursor that you can move around like so, as you see here, and you can drop it like so, and it'll mesmerize up to 6 targets for the same duration as your single target mezzes. Now, You might ask, well, what's the purpose of that? Well, let's say I got a large amount of NPCs around me. You know, I mez them with Perilous, then I throw Stare Down, and now everything is locked for a longer duration, and I'm not quite so worried about it. Another couple of really cool mezzes that we have are the Beam of Slumber and Scintillating Beam AAs. So those are under class tab AAs, under activated, so make sure you maximize those out if you're planning on raiding. Beam of Slumber puts a beam out from you in a kind of like a triangle shape. It'll, wherever you face, it'll mez up to 6 targets for 6 seconds. It's a really fast cast, so I'll hit it right now. Oh, it won't let me. I'm in plane of knowledge. So anyways, it's up to 6 targets, and it will mez everything in front of you for 6 seconds up to the maximum level that your mezzes land. Scintillating Beam does the same thing. Scintillating Beam has a couple of special things on it, though. Scintillating Beam procs a root on the target as well, so it'll be rooted once the mez breaks, so sometimes you might want to think about whether or not it's wise to use that. And whenever the mez is broken, it will snare that target. Although Scintillating Beam only works on dark blue con mobs at the level at the highest level, as it only works up to level 98. So you might not be wanting to throw that into white con, yellow con mobs. Okay, so that's your mezzes. There is another version of this mez here, the mesmerizing stare. But if you've been playing Enchanter for a while, you're well aware of that, and I discussed that in another video. Now, you're gonna find in raids that sometimes mez just doesn't work. Some NPCs are flagged as no mezable, some NPCs just can't, it doesn't allow it. So the next thing you should be reaching for if mez does not work is your stuns. So I keep up the point blank AoE stun similar to Perilous Disorientation called Color Confluence. Now this will stun everything around everything around you, just like before, but there is also a version of it under it's under direct damage stun, I believe. Let me find it. And it's similar to the wave mez, and it's called remote color confluence. So you can choose to bring that one up instead. Although I'm not a big fan of that one, as typically if I have to stun, they're already on top of me. Another thing to make note of is the Unity rune that you'll be keeping up on your bar at all times procs a stun whenever that breaks. So that's important to keep up for crowd control purposes. So that's pretty much crowd control in a nutshell. There are a couple of other abilities such as Nightmare Stasis and Stasis that you can reach for, but I typically don't use Nightmare Stasis and Stasis to mez, and you'll see that in a little bit as to why. Now that your crowd control abilities are in check, you understand how that goes. The next role that we're going to be filling is debuffing. So as a Enchanter, you have a variety of different ways to debuff a mob. We have Enunciation of Tashan, which is a magic resist, single target, unresistible, and you should be hitting that on every target. So it's going to drop your mob's the NPC's magic resist by a certain amount, and then it'll be easier for everyone around you to land spells on them. The next thing that we usually throw is called Demolish Consciousness. You can be dropping their armor class, their dexterity, their agility, and stuff like that to make them not hit your targets as much. So that's what people refer to as a cripple. It's the best cripple in the game, so you should be throwing this out on virtually every target. And then we can look at going into slowing. Now, Enchanters can slow on raids, although typically that role is reserved to Shamans because Shamans get a little bit of a better slow. So you don't want to be using some of the things like the Helix line because the Shamans are going to overwrite that, and the Helix line will take the cripple off as well. So make sure that you're being smart about your slow stacking, and if you are going to slow at all, use the AA called Dreary Deeds, as that is definitely the best route to go. I'll pull up a little hotkey that I use here for slowing so you guys can take a look at this macro. So basically what this macro does is it casts Ethereal Manipulation, which is another magic resist debuff, which is instant cast, increases wizard damage by like 3%, I think. Pauses for a little bit, throws out Dreary Deeds, which is this alt activate 753. It pauses for 17 seconds for the cast, or not 17 seconds, 1.7 seconds for the cast and global refresh, and then it casts cripple. So that will definitely land on everything. So that's something that I use quite heavily on raids. Another couple debuffs that a lot of channers don't use on raids that I highly suggest would be deep sleep. You can tell if you're able to proc deep sleep by going under the class tab, passive, and it's called deep sleep. Deep sleep basically reduces mob chance to hit by 5%, and at the higher levels, it'll actually proc a slow. Now, deep sleep works by essentially procking a slow off of your mezzes. So anytime you mez something in any form, it has a chance to proc this. Now, we do have a couple of AA abilities that are lower level mezzes that can be very, very useful to proc this, one of which is stasis. So if you're sitting there, bind stasis to one of your number keys. Mine is on number 9, so I spam number 9 until I see deep sleep lock onto it, and then I can go on to the next target. Now, hopefully in a later patch they'll decide to give that as an activated version, as most enchanters are using that quite regularly now, but we'll see. The next spell that you're going to want to throw out after deep sleep has landed is going to be called Confounding Constriction. This is a damage over time spell, and it also reduces mob chance to hit and accuracy, and it's a pretty useful dot to be casting on raids. It's probably one of the only dots to be casting on raids, as most raids have lots of necros, and there is an actual target cap as to how many damage over time spells can be on the boss. Now, that's just for your normal standard trash. That's what you're going to be wanting to do on pretty much every mob. So that's something to think about there. Now, for your big targets, your big raid bosses, there's one more AA that you're going to want to get, and it's called Mental Contortion. Mental Contortion is a damage over time spell for about 3,000, and it also has a component on it that reduces mob chance to hit by 20%. It reduces the mob's chance to hit your tank by 20%. This is huge, huge, huge. The duration on this is 3 minutes, and the recast is 30 minutes. So you want to have a couple enchanters, doing a rotation on this. Talk to the other enchanters in your raid guild. See, if they have something set up in their channel. Some of them will just use Gina triggers to talk about that. But it all depends on your raid. So make sure that you're keeping that on your target, and you'll be good to go. Now, that pretty much concludes debuffing as a whole. There are a couple other things that you can do in extremely extraneous situations, but you can find more information about that in the aura video that I made, as they involve the arcane distillect aura, and that reduces NPC magic resist a little further. Now, that's getting into more advanced tactics. I'm just talking about the basics here. The next thing on our list, of course, is going to be applying assisted DPS to our groups. So you'll find that you're placed with mages, wizards, druids, necros, and the off chance you'll get a bard. It depends on your raid, it depends on the available classes, but enchanters are definitely primarily caster support classes. So you're going to be wanting to boost your caster support as much as possible. And the first way that is the easiest for us to do it is through our auras. So go under the aura window here and bring up the Twin Cast aura, which is at level 84. So make sure you get the highest rank of this as you possibly can. Throw out Twin Cast aura, and you're going to throw out Mana Reverberation aura. These two auras together are primarily the best auras to be running if you're in a caster support group. There are a couple situations in which you do not want to be running Mana Reverberation, and I'll kind of go over that really quickly. If you have a druid in your party quite regularly, ask the druid to run Wild Spark aura. Wild Spark aura and Mana Reverberation aura are identical, so essentially Mana Recursion is slightly stronger, but if you remove Mana Recursion aura, it allows you to run the other caster DPS aura, which is Amplify. Now, if you don't have a druid in your group, that's okay. Just run Twin Cast and Mana Reverberation, and then when you're on a burn, drop out Twin Cast aura as improved Twin Cast and other stuff that the mages, wizards, and other people will cast. Don't actually work with it, and bring up the spell focus aura called Amplify. So you want to be running twin cast and mana recursion while you're killing standard trash. And when you're going in for a big burn, you want to be running amplify and mana recursion. If you have a druid, it's very easy to just be running twin cast and amplify and then have them running the wild spark aura. But just make sure you're talking with your groups first and foremost and making sure that everything is all good. So that's it for the auras part of the assisted DPS, but we also have a couple of triggered activated abilities that we're going to be using during burns. First and foremost, that is our most powerful AA. You want to be making sure that you're casting Illusions of Grandeur. So I'm just going to hit that right now. Illusions of Grandeur increases critical dot damage by, increases dot criticals by 10%, increases critical dot damage by 110%, and increases spell critical damage by 90%. So making sure that you have that active while your wizards and mages and all those other people are going on their burn is going to amplify them even further. So making sure that that goes. So you'll see, it goes in the song window here, you'll see the duration is 2 minutes 30 seconds. So when this Illusions of Grandeur fades, so if the burn lasts longer than 2 minutes 30, you want to throw out Third Spire, which is slightly weaker. It increases your spell direct damage by 96%. It doesn't have all these extra cool effects, but hey, whatever, it's a nice little effect. It'll go out there and whatnot. And then, of course, we have our robe clicky, and I'll just pull up my robe. My robe is not current as of making this video. It's Reign of Fear. It invades your target minds and saps their willpower, lowering their magic resist by 10 and increasing chromatic in damage increased by 1600. The stolen willpower will also feed mana to your group. So this robe clicky increases chromatic damage incoming, which is mainly for you and other classes that use chromatic nukes. And it'll also feed your group a little bit of mana. Now, for longer fights, that's really handy. For your own personal burn, it's really handy. But overall, for your group, unless you have a bunch of channers in your group, it's not going to help a ton, but something that you can throw out there. So those three activated abilities are it for assisted DPS for groups and whatnot. So other than that, unless you get things like Circle of Power, Circle of Mana clickies and stuff like that, that's pretty much it. But if you do have those clickies, you can take a look at them yourself and read them, but remember that the Circle of Power and Circle of Mana clickies do consume an aura slot, so just be mindful of that. Now that we've covered assisted DPS and using that, we can go into the fourth and final choice of what you want to be doing on a raid, and those choices are in between doing personal DPS and throwing runes. Now, I made a video on doing personal DPS, although I heard the sound quality was quite terrible, as this is one of the first videos that I did, so I'm going to quickly kind of go over a basic overview of doing personal DPS. First things first, so let's talk about the activated abilities that we have for using our personal burns. So we have Calculated Insanity, which is a critical damage increase, so it's going to increase your critical damage, increase your chance to critical damage, and it's going to just help you hit those higher nukes faster. And then, of course, we have Improved Twin Cast, which is similar to mages and wizards, and they're going to basically increase your chance to twin cast by 100%. So that's why that twin cast aura becomes useless. So you hit Calculated Insanity, Improved Twin Cast, IOG, of course, for your groups, and then you can start your DPS rotation, which is Mind Cleave, the level 100 nuke, Mind Scythe, the level 95 nuke, and Phantasmal Assault. Now these are your primary nukes for your most damage, although this Phantasmal Assault nuke can be subbed out if you want to add a little bit more utility. And there are two different nukes to choose from depending on what kind of scenario you're in. You can give group mana back to your group with Mental Appropriation, or you can rune your tank with Chromatic Percussion. So depending on which role you feel you need to fill as you're DPSing, you can sub those in and be smart about it. But basically, you hit Calculated Insanity, Improved Twin Cast, and then just spam Mind Cleave, Mind Scythe, Phantasmal Assault repeatedly until the Improved Twin Cast fades off your bar. Once Improved Twin Cast fades off your bar, you're probably going to be looking at Illusions of Grandeur coming down. or pretty close. So you're going to want to pop your third spire for your group, as that will amplify you as well. And then you should look at getting into the clockwork automaton, or finding another mob to mez and throw out a couple of critical damage. So improved twin cast goes down, start looking for a mob to mez with chaotic befuddling, get those twin cast procs, and just keep your twin casts going as much as you can, and keep your critical damage modifier as high as you can for as long as you can. Once third spire is down, you're pretty much down to a base rotation, which is going to be, of course, Mind Cleave, Mind Scythe, Phantasmal Unity, or sorry, not Phantasmal, Phantasmal Assault. So that's basically going to hold on to your damage as much as you possibly can. Hopefully, that's looking at the 5-minute mark, so hopefully your target is dead by then, and if it's not, well, to be honest, your DPS is going to peter out anyways, and most of the other people in your group is also. So the burn phase is pretty much over. So now that's the DPS portion of it. This is one of the choices you can make as an enchanter. If you don't feel that doing damage is something that an enchanter should do, there is one more way that we can help the raid, and that's by spreading runes around. So you want to take these damage spells off your bar, and you want to pull up the following runes. So go under Rune and pull up Terrifying Rune, pull up Umbral Auspice, and you want to pull up Rune of Zolok. Where the hell? Sorry, I should have a spell set for this, but I actually deleted it to make another one. So you can also pull up a group rune here. So basically how this works, Terrifying Rune, we'll pop that on ourselves right now. Puts another buff in your short duration window that increases the target's aggro by 22%. So you want to be throwing this at the tank. Start by putting the tanks and people that you want to keep runed in your extended target window here on the left. And you can throw things like Terrifying Rune, then Umbral Rune, then Rune of Zolok over and over and over and over and over again. So basically, you're absorbing as much damage as you possibly can off that tank through runes by using those spells. Umbral Auspice and Rune of Zolok are going to be your most commonly cast spells here, but you can also turn around and cast Umbral Rune on your group. Under no circumstances should you ever cast Umbral Rune on the tanks, as it actually has an aggro reduction modifier on it. So don't be casting that on the tank, cast that on your group to absorb damage, and that's another way you can absorb. So let's talk about using this in a practical application. Another AA that we have that will help is called Glyph Spray. It's an MGB-able buff that is a rune, so it'll put up 50,000 spell damage, so you can save your entire raid from 50,000 spell damage, and that way you can kind of go about it. Now, there's one more AA. This works for your group only. It's called Improved Reactive Rune. So hit that, and I'll put 2 runes in your spell bar. This reacts to damage over 35,000, and this reacts to spell damage over 40,000. So this is for your group only, so you want to make sure that you're keeping that on your group if you're choosing the rune stance. But mostly, runing is pretty basic. Just spam runes on the tanks, and that's another stance you can take. And then, of course, while maintaining your debuffs and stuff. So I hope I didn't make this sound too confusing. Just think about it from the basic perspective, as we have 4 primary roles to fill. So we have crowd control. That's first and foremost. Debuffing. So making sure that everyone around you is debuffed. All the mobs are tashed, slowed, crippled, all that fun stuff. Assisted DPS for your group. So making sure that your auras stay active, and that you're hitting your activated abilities such as Illusions of Grandeur and Third Spire, and your robe clicky for your group, and then choosing between either doing damage or absorbing damage. So if you can wrap your head around that and just primarily keep those 4 things primarily in your head as you're grouping and stuff, and you can kind of do this all without really having to think about it too much, then you're probably ready for raiding. Hopefully some of the AAs that I went over are good kind of ideas to think about and what to be ready for. as you get out there and get ready to start raiding. Later on tonight, I'm hopefully going to start posting a couple of little snippets of us on raids, depending on how people feel about it. But just going to end off this video here by stating that Pain and Glory on Vox is looking for a couple of enchanters. So if raiding for you as an enchanter is something that you're thinking about and you don't mind transferring servers, or maybe you're already on the Vox server, we definitely could use 2 or 3 more enchanters actively on raids. And of course, as always, I'm always here willing to lend a hand to anybody that is wanting to learn the enchanter class, or any that is serious about raiding as an enchanter. So just send me a tell by typing tell.vox.Dandin, and can definitely get a hold of you in that manner. Or you can always send me an email at dandingaming@gmail.com, or send a comment, a message to me on YouTube. Or of course, you can reach me at dandinmindfire on the EverQuest forums. I don't always respond to everything, but I definitely do read all the comments. I read all the feedback that I am getting. So to those of you that have been providing me support as I make this video series, definitely thank you so much. You guys are the reasons that I do this. So if you guys want to see more content from EverQuest, you guys want to see how this all plays out, you want to see some raid content, some group content, etc., etc., definitely subscribe, like this video, share it out there to anybody that may want to learn the enchanter class. And as always, we'll see y'all next time.